You did not accidentally stop here, not because of an algorithm, not because of passing curiosity, and certainly not because you had nothing better to do. There is a deeper reason slowing you down in the middle of a life that is always pushing forward, and that reason does not come from the outside world, but from the deepest place within you, a place that has grown tired from holding itself together for too long, a place that has silently endured too much without ever being named. At this very moment, there is a truth that needs to be spoken clearly if you are still breathing, still reading, still able to feel something gently stirring inside. Then you have never been forgotten. Your life, from the outside, may look like a series of days spent just trying to survive. Others only see you going to work, fulfilling responsibilities, smiling at the right times, staying silent in the right places. But there are nights you know very well, when all sounds have faded, when no one needs you to be strong. You have sat there and wondered where you are going. You have wondered why you have to carry more than others, endure more than others, and why things that seem so small to others become a long-lasting weight inside you. Not because you are weak, not because you are inadequate, and certainly not because you did anything wrong. There are people born with more sensitive hearts, with a deeper capacity to feel, and with a greater invisible responsibility. They are not prepared for an easy life, but for a meaningful journey. And you, even if it has never been named for you, are one of them. From very early on, life taught you how to stand firm. No one sat down to explain how to endure, but circumstances forced you to learn. There were times you wished you could live more carefree, more naive, with less thinking. But every time you tried to lower your guard, life reminded you that if you did not protect yourself, no one else would do it for you. So you learned to stay silent. You learned to swallow your tears. You learned to keep going even when you were no longer sure where you were headed. What you do not know is this: there are footsteps, even when tired, that are still being watched. There are tears, even unseen, that are still remembered. There are nights when you thought you were completely alone, but in truth, you were never the only one in that room. There has been a quiet presence beside you for a very long time, not pushing, not interfering, but never leaving. When you think you are lost, you are actually being guided through paths that only the chosen are asked to walk. When you think you are slower than others, you are actually being held back so you do not step into doors that are not ready for you. And when you think you have missed too much, another truth is waiting to be spoken. Some things cannot arrive earlier, because if they did, they would break you apart. There is an ancient saying that remains true. Even though the world has changed so much, God is close to the brokenhearted and saves those whose spirits are crushed. That does not mean you must suffer forever to be loved. It means that in the moment you think you are at your weakest, you are actually closest to the truth, closest to the sacred force working within you, even if you have not yet found a name for it. You may have thought your life was nothing more than a series of reactions to events, but there is a deeper layer that has never been pointed out to you. Not everything that happens is random. Not every wound is meaningless, and not every delay is a failure. Some things can only be built in silence, in waiting, in years when no one applauds for you. You carry a story within you that even you have not fully read. What you remember are the painful parts, the heavy chapters, the pages soaked with sweat and tears. But there are other pages still being written, and they need you to remain standing to complete them, not to prove anything to the world, but so that one day you can stand upright before yourself and say that you did not give up. Right now, what matters is not that you understand everything. What matters is that you pause long enough to listen, not to the noise out there, but to the very small call trying to break through the layers of defense you have built over many years. That call is not urging you to do anything immediately. It asks only one simple, yet difficult thing. Are you willing to believe that your life has more meaning than what you have been told? This story does not begin with victory. It begins with truth. The truth that you are tired, the truth that you have carried too much, and the truth that you are still here. That is not accidental. That is a sign that your journey has not reached its ending, and that there has been a hand holding you back and holding you up, even when you did not know how to name it. You do not need to believe everything right now. You only need to stay a little longer, because there are things that can only be spoken layer by layer, and there are journeys that only unfold when the traveler is patient enough to keep walking, even without seeing the road ahead. When you stay a little longer, certain memories begin to rise, not loud but persistent. They do not come to make you collapse, but to be acknowledged. You remember the times when you had to grow up without warning. There was no coming-of-age ceremony, no one telling you that from today you would have to be stronger than others. It was simply that life suddenly placed another weight on your shoulders, and you had no choice but to stand upright and carry it forward. There are things you have grown used to not talking about, not because they are unimportant, but because you learned early on that not everyone knows how to listen. So you chose silence. You chose to smile when needed. You chose to say, "I am fine," even when inside you were cracking into pieces. Gradually, endurance became instinct, and you forgot what it feels like to lean on someone. But within that silence, something has always been happening without you noticing. Every time you thought you could not go on, you still went on. Every time you thought you had hit the bottom, you did not disappear. You did not realize that the ability to stand up after each fall is not something everyone has. Some people break the first time, some people give up halfway, and you, even without knowing why, have always stood up one more time. Perhaps you have blamed yourself for not being fast enough, not good enough, not lucky enough. You look at other people's lives and wonder why they seem easier, lighter, but you do not see the roads they did not have to walk. You do not see the nights they did not have to stay awake. You do not see the questions they did not have to carry for years. Comparison has never been fair, especially when you are carrying a completely different journey. The truth is that some people are born to face pressure earlier, not to be crushed, but to be refined. They are like metal placed into fire, not to be destroyed, but to become stronger, sharper. You have been in the fire more times than you think, and each time you step out, even exhausted, you carry another layer of strength that you have not yet had time to recognize. There are moments when you think you are walking the wrong path, but if you look back carefully, you will see that every painful turn has spared you from another road that was even darker. There are doors that did not open, not because you were unworthy, but because if you had entered at that time, you would not have remained yourself when you came out. What you call loss is sometimes simply protection that you have not yet understood. You are not someone who has wandered off the plan. You are someone who is exactly where you need to be, even if the surroundings do not yet reflect it. There is a line written long ago, yet it seems meant for moments like this. The Lord directs the steps of humankind, while humankind plans their own way. That line does not deny your confusion, but places it within a greater order, where every step, even trembling ones, is still being guided. You begin to realize that there are things that cannot be learned from books, cannot be heard from advice, but can only be absorbed through experience. You have learned how to read the silence of a room. You have learned how to sense the smallest shift in someone's voice. You have learned when to speak and when to step back. Those things do not come from innocence, but from collision, and every collision leaves a mark. Perhaps you once wished for a simpler life, but if your life were truly simple, you would not carry this depth within you. You would not have the ability to touch another person's pain without judgment. You would not know how to sit beside someone who is falling apart without trying to fix them. These things are not accidental. They are signs of a heart that has been widened through trials. And even if you have not yet found a name for your journey, even if you do not understand why everything has unfolded this way, one thing is becoming clearer. You are not merely existing. You are being prepared not for a loud, explosive moment, but for a role that requires inner steadiness. That role does not arrive yet, because if it came too early, you would not have deep enough roots to stand firm within it. Perhaps for the first time, you allow yourself to look back, not to blame, but to recognize that you have gone farther than you thought. To recognize that scars are not proof of failure, but proof that you survived. And in that moment, a new question begins to form. No longer as heavy as before. If all of this was not meant to destroy me, then what is it preparing me for? You do not need the answer right away. What matters is that you have begun to ask the right question. And when a person begins to ask the right question, their journey has quietly moved into another stage, even if on the surface everything still looks the same. When that question forms, there is no thunder, no loud sign announcing it. There is only a very strange feeling, as if you begin to realize you are standing at the edge of something different. Not necessarily better right away, but more real. You find yourself paying attention to things you used to let pass by. A casual sentence touches deeper than usual. A quiet moment suddenly carries weight, as if something inside you is waking up after a very long sleep. You begin to understand that you have lived too long in survival mode. Every decision revolves around avoiding hurt, avoiding disappointment, avoiding hoping too much only to be disappointed once again. You are used to keeping yourself at a safe level, afraid to expect anything too big, not because you have no dreams, but because you once believed, and you once got hurt. And each time that happened, you learned another way to protect yourself better. But there is a truth you have never allowed yourself to face if you live forever in defense. You will never know how you were created to shine. There are parts of you that have never been used, not because they do not exist, but because you have never felt safe enough to let them appear. You have grown too accustomed to standing in your own shadow, to the point of forgetting what it feels like to stand in the light. Here, the story does not push you to change immediately. No one asks you to believe harder, to be braver, to become different overnight. The only thing being asked is honesty. Honesty about what you are feeling, honesty about how tired you have been, and honesty about the fact that, even while tired, you are still listening. That alone already says a great deal. You may not yet have a name for what is happening, but you can feel it, as if someone is placing a hand on your shoulder, not pushing you forward, not pulling you back, simply being there long enough for you to know that you do not have to hold yourself together alone anymore. That presence does not demand that you prove anything. It only waits for you to admit that you do not need to be strong constantly in order to deserve to stay. Perhaps you realize that all this time you have lived as if you were a bystander in your own story. Things happened, and you reacted, one situation after another, but you never truly stopped to ask where you were being led. Now, as you allow yourself to pause, you begin to see that there has always been an undercurrent, patient, persistent, waiting for you to notice. If in this moment you feel something resonate, do not rush to push it away. Some people will read, listen, and move on like with any other content. But there are also those who, even without fully understanding, choose to stay a little longer, choose to leave a very small sign, like a quiet confirmation that they are present, not to please anyone, but to tell themselves that they are no longer avoiding this conversation. In the same way, your decision to continue walking with this journey does not need explanation. There are paths that require only a small step to begin. A very simple choice, like choosing to listen one more time, choosing not to leave as soon as things begin to touch deeper. Sometimes commitment does not come from a grand vow, but from you returning. The next time, and the time after that. You may notice that when you allow yourself to be more fully present, old thoughts begin to resist. They whisper that you are hoping too much, that you will only be disappointed again. They remind you of previous times, when you believed and when you broke. But what those thoughts do not tell you is this: without those times of believing, you would not still be here to hear this story. You would no longer have the ability to recognize truth when it knocks. There is a very thin boundary between protecting yourself and imprisoning yourself. You have stood at that boundary for a long time, and now no one is forcing you to step completely to the other side. You only need to recognize that the boundary exists. You only need to know that there is another option, beyond shrinking yourself once again. You do not need to speak loudly. You do not need to declare anything before a crowd. But if you want, you can leave a very small sign, a response, a presence, not to prove belief, but to acknowledge that you are listening. And if you feel that this journey is worth continuing, you can choose to stay, choose to return, as a form of companionship, quiet, unshowy. This story has not reached its climax. It is moving into its most real part, where you begin to realize that you are not only someone who endures what happens, but someone who is being invited to step into a more active role in your own life, not by your own strength, but by allowing yourself to be guided one step at a time, at a pace you can bear. And when you stay until here, that already says something very clear. Even if you have not named it yet, you are more ready than you think. Not ready for everything, but ready for the next step. And with journeys that carry depth, sometimes that alone is enough for everything to begin to move. When you begin to look back on your journey with different eyes, the pieces that once seemed scattered slowly reveal an order you could not see before. The things that hurt you the most are the very points that shaped who you are today. Not in a gentle way, but in a way that forced you to grow up before you even understood you were growing. You did not get to choose your circumstances, but you chose not to disappear within them. And that choice, though silent, has carried a very real weight. There are moments in your past that, when you look back, you realize you were placed in unfair situations. You were misunderstood, misjudged, left out even after giving your best. At times you wondered why others did less, yet received more, while you had to pay a price for every step you took. Those questions are not signs of bitterness, but signs of someone who still cares, who still hopes that justice exists somewhere. But what you could not see then is this. Some paths only open when other paths close. Some roles cannot be given to someone who has never been tested in loyalty. You have been in situations where, if you had not held on to your true nature, you could have become someone else, more bitter, more cold, more closed off. But you did not choose that road, even though it was much easier. You may remember the story of Joseph, not as a lesson told in a book, but as a mirror reflecting back at you. A man rejected by his own family, thrown into a pit not because of wrongdoing, but because of jealousy. Each stage of his life looked like a step backward, yet every step back placed him exactly where he needed to be for what would come later. Without any single part, that story could not have been completed. You are the same. There are seasons in your life when you thought you were being delayed, but in truth you were being positioned in a place you would later understand was essential. There were times you had to remain in the dark longer than others, so that when the light came, you would no longer fear it. There were moments you thought you were forgotten, but in reality you were being held back, kept away from things that would have pulled you away from your true self. You begin to realize that not every wound needs to be explained right away. Some answers only come when you are strong enough not to use them as excuses to close your heart. Before, you wanted to understand in order to feel safe. Now you begin to understand in order to grow. That is a profound difference. And that difference does not come from knowledge, but from experience that has settled into your every response. Perhaps you once felt you were placed in the wrong position, that your talents were not seen, that your kindness was not appreciated. But if you look deeper, you will see that those places taught you how to hold on to your values even when no one acknowledged them. You learn not to measure your worth by the reactions of others. You learn to keep doing what was right even when no one stood beside you. And that is what built a foundation no one can take away. Not a foundation of loud confidence, but of quiet steadiness. You no longer need to prove who you are to anyone. You have lived long enough in conditions that showed you exactly who you are when there are no lights shining on you. And that kind of understanding is not easy to gain. Gradually, you find that you no longer crave recognition the way you once did, not because you do not need love, but because you have learned how to stand without constant validation. You begin to sense that a larger plan is at work, and that your role within it does not depend on whether others notice or not. What matters more is whether you are willing to remain true to your nature until the time arrives. Some things are given only to those who have walked through darkness without letting the darkness define them. You have been in spaces where the easiest choice was to become numb, but you chose differently, not always perfectly, not always strong, but honest enough not to lose yourself. And that choice, repeated over many years, has quietly prepared you for what comes next. You may not see the reward yet. You may still be in a stage where everything looks mostly unchanged, but something has changed very clearly. Even if you cannot name it yet, you are no longer someone walking through the dark without knowing why you are walking. You begin to sense that every experience, whether painful or slow, is being placed exactly where it belongs. Your story is not a series of mistakes that need fixing. It is a guided process, sometimes winding, sometimes hard to understand, but never meaningless. And when you begin to see your journey in that light, you will realize that the things that once made you doubt yourself the most are the very things that have created the depth you carry today. You do not need to do anything else right now. Just stay with this truth a little longer, because when you truly see the value of everything you have walked through, you will no longer fear what lies ahead. And right there, your journey will begin to shift, not through a sharp turn, but through a new steadiness that has just been placed within you. When you stand long enough at the intersection between what has passed and what has not yet been named, one thing begins to appear very clearly. Not every cycle lasts forever. Some phases in life are born only to complete something, then quietly close when their task is finished. You have been in such a cycle longer than you realize, not because you are slow, but because that cycle carried more layers, more depth, and required you to become a different person before it would release you. There were times when you felt as if you were repeating the same lesson, the same feeling, the same kind of trial, only with different settings and different faces. You may have wondered whether you were stuck, but the truth is this: a lesson only repeats when it has not yet been completed. Not in the mind, but in the depth of who you are, and you have completed it already, even without an announcement, even without anyone standing up to confirm it. Here, a spiritual sign appears very quietly, without display, yet carrying the weight of completion. The number 777, not to impress, not to turn the sacred into a formula, but to point to an ancient principle. 7 is the number of wholeness, of enough, of a cycle closed at the right time. 3 times 7 is not multiplication, but emphasis. emphasis that some phases do not need to last longer, because if they do, they begin to harm instead of build. 777 does not say that every difficulty will disappear immediately. It says that the foundation is complete, that what needed to be formed inside you has been formed, that what you once had to endure in order to learn how to stand is no longer required to repeat in the same way. That cycle has finished its work, and when a cycle is complete, a new space begins to open, even if at first you cannot yet see its shape. You may sense this change even before outer circumstances reflect it. You notice that you no longer react the same way. Things that once sent you into panic now simply make you pause. Words that once wounded you deeply no longer cut as far, not because you have grown numb, but because you are now steady enough not to be knocked down by every wind. That is the sign of someone who has crossed the boundary of the old cycle, even if they have not fully stepped into the new one yet. There is something very important that needs to be said clearly here. Completion does not always come with the feeling of victory. Sometimes it arrives as relief. Sometimes it comes as a quiet space. And sometimes it comes in the form of a new question rising within you. If I no longer have to live just to endure, then what am I being invited to live for? You do not need to rush to answer that question. Big questions do not require quick answers. They require space. And the closing of the old cycle is creating that space. Space for you to no longer be defined by what hurt you. Space for you to begin realizing that your life is not only a reaction to events, but a journey with direction. Even if that direction is not yet fully clear, if within you, the number 777 creates a very personal sense of resonance, pay attention to that. Not to chase the number, but to listen to what it is reflecting inside you. Some people may feel that a different number fits the stage they are living through more closely. What matters is not the number itself, but that you allow yourself to acknowledge that you are stepping into a different phase. And if you are willing, you can share the number that resonates most with you, as a way of naming the moment where you are standing. You begin to realize that you are no longer as afraid of change as before, not because you know exactly what will happen, but because you know you have survived far worse. You have walked through darkness without a map. Compared to that, stepping into a new space, even an unclear one, is no longer the most frightening thing. At least this time, you are not walking with a heart still full of unhealed wounds. You may still carry a bit of hesitation. That is natural. No one steps into a new cycle without carrying memories of the old one. But those memories are no longer driving. They sit in the back seat, reminding you how far you have come, and that is their rightful place, not to control, but to bear witness. You do not need to announce to the world that a cycle has ended. Real transitions rarely need an audience. They need honesty. Honesty that you are no longer the person you were. Honesty that you cannot return to living the same way, even if you tried. And honesty that something is opening, slowly but surely. The old cycle does not end to deny what it taught you. It ends because it has finished teaching. And when a lesson is complete, the wisest thing is not to cling, but to move forward with gratitude, even for the parts that once caused pain, because without them, you would not be standing here, in this moment of transition. You do not need to see the entire road ahead. You only need to recognize that you are no longer standing at the starting point. There is a door slightly opening, not with loud noise, but with a very subtle shift in how you see yourself. And sometimes that is the clearest sign that one cycle has closed, and something new is beginning to take form. When the old cycle closes, you do not step straight into blinding light like the stories people often tell. What comes first is a space, not a frightening emptiness, but the space that appears when heavy burdens have just been set down. You begin to realize that you no longer have to react to everything the way you used to. You no longer have to explain so much. You no longer have to defend every small choice. A new quiet appears, not because all problems have vanished, but because they no longer control you. You may feel surprised when you notice that you no longer crave proving your worth the way you once did, not because you no longer want to move forward, but because you have stopped seeking validation from places that could never give it to you. A very different kind of confidence is forming, not loud, not performative, but steady. It does not say you are better than anyone. It only whispers that you are enough, enough to stop chasing, enough to stop forcing yourself to fit expectations that were never meant for you. Some doors begin to open in very ordinary ways. There is no loud echo, no moment that draws the attention of the whole world, just small opportunities, chance encounters, ideas that appear at the right time, where before you might have overlooked them from exhaustion or suspicion. Now you begin to notice them as subtle signs, not signs that push you to rush in, but invitations to consider with a new posture inside. You begin to realize that abundance is not only about what you can physically hold. It begins with the feeling of no longer being empty inside, no longer feeling that you must constantly compensate for something that was lost. You may still be rebuilding finances, still healing your body, still learning how to trust people again. But there is a clear shift. You are no longer doing these things from desperation. You are doing them from a steadier foundation, where you believe you are worthy of restoration, not trying to earn it. An ancient line returns very softly in this context, not as a command, but as a gentle reminder. Take delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. This does not promise that every surface-level desire will be fulfilled immediately. It speaks of an inner realignment, when your joy is no longer rooted in the fear of loss. What you long for begins to change shape. It becomes more honest, more fitting, and less likely to cost you yourself. You may find it easier to say no to things that once drained you, not because you have grown cold, but because you have begun to respect your own energy. You understand that not every invitation is meant for you. Not every opportunity needs to be taken. Some doors open only to test whether you are willing to step back into old loops, and this time you are awake enough not to call them destiny. Some people quietly step out of your life during this stage, not because of major conflict, but because the rhythm no longer matches. Before, that might have terrified you. Now you feel sadness without panic. You understand that separation is not always loss. Sometimes it is the only way both sides can stop hurting each other just to preserve something familiar. You learn that holding on to everything is not loyalty, but sometimes a delay of the truth. At the same time, new connections appear, not loudly, but rightly. People who do not require you to explain yourself too much. Conversations that do not force you to brace yourself. Moments where you can be yourself without fear of being misunderstood. They do not arrive all at once, but they arrive enough for you to realize that you are no longer walking alone in the old way. There is companionship, not intrusive, not demanding, simply present. You begin to look at old dreams with different eyes. Some dreams no longer fit, and you allow yourself to release them without guilt. Some dreams you thought had died were only sleeping, waiting for you to be steady enough to wake them again. You no longer ask whether you are worthy of dreaming. The question now is whether this dream reflects who you truly are, or if it is only a way to be recognized. What matters is that you are no longer in a hurry, not because you fear moving forward, but because you understand that rushed steps often lead you back to places you worked very hard to escape. You learn to move slowly without feeling left behind. You learn to wait without self-blame. And in this new rhythm, you begin to sense a guidance that does not force, does not pull strings, but feels unmistakably clear. You do not need to see the entire picture in order to keep going. You only need enough trust to place your foot on the next step. And unlike before, this time you are not walking because you fear what will happen if you stay still. You are walking because there is a deep inner agreement that this direction fits the person you are becoming. Not every day is bright, not every moment is certain, but one thing has changed permanently. You no longer doubt that your path has meaning. Even on unclear days, you still sense a current holding you up, not dragging you forward, but keeping you from being swept away. And as you stand here, having just closed one cycle and learning how to step into another, that says a great deal. It says you did not turn away from yourself. It says you chose honesty over convenience. And it says that even though the road ahead is not fully clear, you are ready to move forward without needing to be the person you used to be. When you step into this stage, a very subtle shift takes place inside you. Not the kind of change others immediately notice, but a change in how you stand within life. You no longer feel like someone who only reacts to what happens. You begin to sense that your presence carries weight, not because you control everything, but because you are no longer pulled around by everything the way you once were. There are moments when you enter a room and notice the atmosphere change, not because you say anything special, but because you carry a very real calm with you. You have been through enough chaos to no longer panic in the face of chaos. You have faced enough fear to no longer be led by fear. That does not make you cold. It makes you clear about what belongs to you and what does not. You begin to understand that you were not only called to get through things, but also to bring change wherever you stand. Not by explaining, not by trying to convince anyone, but by living in alignment with the truth that has been refined within you. There are people who need to see someone who has walked through darkness without losing compassion. And simply by existing in that way, you already become a powerful message. You may once have believed that strength must come with hardness. Now you realize that true strength is often very quiet. It does not need to prove itself. It does not need to defeat anyone. It only needs to stand firm. You no longer feel the need to argue every misunderstanding. You choose where it is worth speaking and where it is better to let truth do its own work. That choice does not come from fear, but from maturity. New challenges appear, unlike the old ones. They are more subtle, more quiet, no longer direct blows, but familiar invitations. Familiar enough that if you are not aware, you could step back into old loops without realizing it. But this time, you pause, you listen, and you choose differently, not because you are afraid, but because you have already seen the cost of those choices. In this stage, you begin to understand that peace is not the absence of difficulty. Peace is the ability to stand in the middle of difficulty without losing yourself. There is a word that was spoken to those who walk this path. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. John 16:33. That word does not promise a smooth road, but it affirms that you do not walk alone, and that the ending is not in the hands of chaos. You realize that the things that once frightened you most are now simply tests, not to make you fall, but to see whether you still define yourself by fear. You no longer need to run when emotions rise. You allow yourself to feel, but you do not let emotions decide your direction. That is a very different kind of freedom, not loud, but deep. There are people who look at you and do not understand why you are so calm. They do not see what you have been through. They do not know how many nights you had to hold yourself together to keep from breaking. But you no longer need them to understand. You no longer live to be understood by everyone. You live to be faithful to what has been placed within you. and that brings a steadiness that praise or criticism cannot easily shake. You also begin to realize that you no longer need to carry everyone at the same pace. Some people are not ready to go deeper. Some still need old cycles to learn their own lessons. Before, you might have tried to pull them along and exhausted yourself. Now you learn to respect each person's rhythm, even when that means continuing alone for a stretch of the road. Loneliness at this stage feels different from before. It no longer feels like abandonment. It feels like a necessary space for you to hear more clearly what is guiding you. You no longer fill silence with noise. You let it be. And in that silence, you begin to notice things that were once hidden beneath too much worry and expectation. There are moments when you realize you have been given a very different kind of authority. Not authority to control, but authority to not be controlled. Not authority to impose, but authority to stand firm in truth. And that authority does not come from position or title, but from the fact that you did not lose yourself when everything gave you reason to. You do not need to announce that you have changed. Those who are meant to notice will notice. Those who do not will not make it any less real. This shift does not need external proof. It is already marked in how you respond, in how you choose, in how you walk even when no one is watching. And here is something very important. You were not called to keep the light only for yourself, not by standing above others, but by living truthfully enough for others to see that there is another way, a way that does not deny pain, but does not allow pain to rule, a way that does not avoid challenge, but does not worship it either. You are stepping into that role, even if you have not named it yet, the role of someone who has been through and therefore can stand firm, not to instruct, but to be present, not to lead with words, but with life. And that is what will slowly open the next part of the journey, where what you carry inside begins to find a place to flow out, at the right time, in the right way. You do not need to see everything clearly yet. As long as you keep walking with this honesty, the path will reveal itself piece by piece. And each piece will confirm what you are beginning to believe, that everything you have been through was not meant to harden you, but to make you steady enough to become who you were created to be. When you go far enough in this new steadiness, one thing becomes very clear: you are no longer living in a state of being pulled around by the world outside. Changes still happen, news still arrives, people still change. But inside you, an anchor has been set. Not an anchor that removes your emotions, but one that keeps emotions from controlling your direction. There are days when you wake up without knowing exactly what the day will bring. Before, that uncertainty might have made you anxious, even frozen. Now it simply makes you more careful, more aware. You no longer need every answer to arrive immediately. You learn to walk with unanswered questions without seeing that as failure. This patience does not come from giving up, but from trust that has been refined. You begin to realize that there is a kind of peace that does not depend on circumstances. It does not arrive when everything is resolved. It arrives when you stop demanding that life be perfect before you allow yourself to stand steady. That peace is not loud. It does not excite you, but it stays, even when other things change. And when you touch it, you understand that you have stepped into a very different level of the journey. There is a line that was written for moments like this: "The peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your heart and mind." Philippians 4:7. That line does not promise that your mind will always understand everything. It promises that there is a guarding taking place. Even when you cannot yet name what you are facing, you no longer have to hold yourself together through anxiety. There is another kind of keeping doing that work for you. Within this space of peace, you begin to see old wounds in a different light. They are no longer weaknesses you try to hide. They become places that remind you that you survived. You no longer tell your story from the position of a victim. You tell it from the position of someone who has been through. And that shift completely changes how you step into relationships, work, and new decisions. You no longer feel pulled into proving that you are fully healed. You understand that healing is not erasing memory, but refusing to let memory control the present. Old days still return at times, but they no longer sit in the driver's seat. They simply pass through, reminding you how far you have come, and you let them go, without holding on, without running away. There are people who enter your life in this stage and sense something in you they cannot name, not because you try to be different, but because you no longer need to be like anyone else. You do not force your rhythm on others. You also do not chase theirs. You stand in your place, and that creates a sense of safety that not everyone can offer. You also learn that not every battle needs to be entered. Before, you may have spent enormous energy proving you were right, defending your views, making sure you were not overlooked. Now you are more selective. You understand that truth does not always need to be shouted. Sometimes, silence and moving forward are the clearest response. This choice does not make you smaller. It makes you freer. In quiet moments, you begin to hear more clearly what is guiding you, not as commands, but as deep agreement. Some directions require you to strain from beginning to end. Others, even when difficult, feel right. You begin to trust that sense, not as passing emotion, but as the result of a long process of learning how to listen. You also begin to understand that maturity is not the moment you no longer need anyone. It is the moment you know who you need and how. You no longer seek relationships to fill emptiness. You seek companionship, where both people can stand without leaning. And if that has not appeared yet, you do not panic. You know how to be alone without feeling incomplete. There were parts of you once held back because you feared they would make everything more complicated. Now you begin to allow them to exist, not to erupt, but to be integrated. Your sensitivity is no longer a burden. Your depth is no longer something that isolates you. They become tools that help you see what others miss, and you no longer apologize for that. You realize that life does not ask whether you are ready for everything. It only asks whether you are ready for the next step. And this next step does not demand that you run faster, become better, or be perfect. It only asks that you hold on to the honesty you worked so hard to build. Hold it when things are smooth. Hold it when things are unclear. You begin to sense a current lifting you, not pushing you. It allows you to adjust, pause, reflect, then move forward. There is no longer pressure to keep up with anyone, no longer fear of being left behind if you move slowly. You understand that your journey cannot be compared to anyone else's because its foundation was built in very personal places. And here, one thing becomes unmistakably clear. You are no longer standing at the doorway. You have stepped in, not into a life without challenges, but into a different way of living. A way of living that does not deny darkness, but does not allow darkness to define you. A way of living that does not require certainty in order to keep moving. You do not need to know the final destination. What matters is that you know you are no longer walking against yourself. And when a person stops walking against themselves, many doors begin to open, not through force, but through alignment. The road ahead is still there, with stretches not yet fully lit. But now, you no longer fear the dark the way you once did. You carry enough light to take another step. And step by step, quietly, without display, you are being led toward a place where everything you have been through begins to hold fuller meaning. When you have gone deep enough to no longer doubt that you are being guided, your vision begins to expand beyond the boundaries of yourself. not in a way that makes you forget your own needs, but in a way that helps you understand that your life is not closed within a small circle. What you are living, learning, and moving through does not stop at helping you survive better. It is quietly creating an influence that you may not see right away, but it is real. You begin to realize that some decisions you make today will not only affect the present, they will echo farther, touching people you have not met yet, moments you have not lived yet. Before, you may have lived day by day, just getting through because everything felt too heavy to think far ahead. Now, as the foundation has changed, you allow yourself to think about the future without feeling that it is a luxury. There is a very important shift here. You no longer see the future as a place you must run to in order to escape the present. You begin to see it as a space being built little by little, starting with the small choices you are making now, the way you say no to what harms you, the way you say yes to what nourishes you, the way you choose honesty over convenience. All of these are laying the first bricks for something more lasting. You also begin to understand that not every seed sprouts immediately. Some seeds need time in dark soil. Before, you may have doubted your quiet efforts. You wondered whether they mattered when no one saw them, when no one acknowledged them. But now, you begin to trust that a deeper principle is at work, one that does not need a spotlight to function. There is a word written for those standing at this crossroads of the journey. For I know the plans I have for you, plans for peace and not disaster, to give you a future and a hope. Jeremiah 29:11. That word does not deny that you have walked through hard paths. It places those paths into a larger picture, where they are not the end, but part of the preparation for what is to come. As you let that promise settle in, you begin to look at your responsibilities differently, no longer as burdens to be carried just to get through, but as tasks entrusted to the right person. You realize that people around you are watching how you live, even if they never say it. They watch how you stand up after failure. They watch how you refuse to let bitterness shape your words. And they learn something from that, even when you are not trying to teach. You no longer need to become a perfect example for anyone. Simply living honestly, with acknowledged limits and firmly held values, is enough to create a healthy influence. Some people need to see that they do not have to become numb in order to survive. Some need to see that it is possible to move through pain without losing compassion. And your life, in a very natural way, is becoming evidence of that truth. You also begin to think about legacy, not in a grand or material sense right away. Legacy here is what remains in others after you pass through. A feeling of being respected, a sense of safety to be oneself, a belief that kindness is not naive. You realize that every time you choose to live true to yourself, you are planting a seed that may grow much later. There are still days when you are tired. There are still moments when you doubt, but the difference now is that you no longer let those feelings make you forget what you are building. You allow yourself to rest, but you do not quit. You allow yourself to move slowly, but you do not turn back. And that rhythm carries you farther than you once believed possible. You begin to see clearly that your life is not a mistake that needs fixing, but a journey being led toward wholeness in its own way, not by copying anyone else's path, but by remaining faithful to what has been placed within you. That faithfulness is not always easy, but it is the only thing that brings the deep peace you are beginning to taste. At this stage, you are no longer in a hurry to prove that you have arrived. You understand that this journey does not have a single destination where everything stops. It is an ongoing flow, where each stage opens into a new responsibility, a new depth, and you are no longer afraid of that. You know that you will not be given what exceeds the preparation you have received. A strong trust is forming inside you, not trust that everything will always be smooth, but trust that whatever happens, you will not be abandoned within it. This trust allows you to look ahead without clenching your fists in anxiety. You can open your hands, not because you are certain you will lose nothing, but because you trust that what truly belongs to you will not go astray. You begin to understand that what you have been through is not just the past, it is the foundation. And that foundation was not built for you to stand still and admire it, but so you can continue building on it, steadier, higher, at your own pace. No one else can do that for you, but no one is asking you to do it alone. When you look back from this point, you see more clearly than ever that you were protected through paths that once felt impossible. And if you were protected this far, there is reason to trust that the guidance has not ended. It is only shifting into another form, where you are no longer carried, but accompanied, in deeper agreement and trust. You are stepping into a stage where your life is not lived only for today. It is quietly shaping a future with depth, not only for you, but for those who will touch your journey in many different ways. And that is what gives each step, even small, even slow, real weight. You do not need to see everything that is coming. You only need to keep walking with this honesty, because when someone walks in their own truth, the path ahead makes room on its own, not through force, but through deep alignment. At this point, you are no longer standing before the question of whether your life has meaning or not. That question has quietly fallen away along the path, not because you found a complete answer, but because you have lived long enough to feel meaning already at work in every step you take. You no longer need to see the entire picture to trust that you are in the right place. A quiet certainty has taken root, not born from control, but from a deep alignment between who you are becoming and the path opening before you. You realize that for a long time you lived as if you had to carry everything by yourself, as if the moment you let go, everything would collapse. Now you begin to understand that there are seasons in life when a person is not called to hold on tighter, but to set things down, not because of weakness, but because you have gone far enough that you no longer need to prove your endurance. You allow yourself to rest without guilt. You allow yourself to trust without demanding immediate proof. There is a very real sense of relief when you no longer have to play the role of the strong one all the time. You no longer hide your vulnerability as something shameful. You understand that this very vulnerability, when held with care, becomes the place where true strength can flow through. Not strength to overpower, but strength to stand, to remain present, to not run when things become difficult. You begin to live more slowly, but more deeply. Your decisions no longer come from the fear of being left behind. They come from inner clarity. You do not need to explain your path to everyone. Some choices only need to make sense to you. And that freedom brings a kind of peace you once searched for a long time in places that could never give it to you. There are moments when you look back and realize that you once prayed simply to escape pain, to escape injustice, to escape the feelings that made you doubt yourself. But if you are honest, you can also see that if those prayers had been answered exactly the way you wanted at the time, you would not have become who you are now. You would not carry this depth. You would not be able to stand in the light without harming the parts of you that once lived in the dark. There is a promise that has walked alongside those who move through a journey like this. A promise that does not say life will be without trials, but says they will not be abandoned within them. The Lord will instruct you in the way you should go. He will counsel you. His eye will be upon you. That promise does not place you in the position of someone who must manage everything alone, but of someone who is being guided, step by step, at a pace you can bear. You no longer seek absolute certainty before moving forward. You understand that faith is not knowing everything in advance, but being willing to walk even when you do not yet see it all. Not because of recklessness, but because you have learned how to recognize guidance when it appears. Sometimes it comes as a door opening very quietly. Sometimes it comes as a door closing that no longer hurts the way it once did. And sometimes it comes as an unexplainable peace in the middle of unfinished things. You also begin to look at your relationships with new maturity. You no longer cling to connections that exist only out of habit or fear of loneliness. You choose quality over quantity. You choose truth over appearance. And if empty spaces appear, you do not rush to fill them. You let them be, trusting that what truly fits will find its way to you in time. You no longer place the burden of having to become someone on your shoulders. You begin to understand that you already are someone, a person who has been through, a person who has learned how to rise again, a person who is not perfect, but honest. And that honesty is the strongest foundation for anything that will be built next. The world outside may still be loud, still full of quick promises and tempting shortcuts, but you are no longer pulled in the same way. You have tasted enough to know that what truly lasts rarely arrives in a hurry. It requires time, it requires patience, and it requires a person steady enough not to destroy it out of fear of waiting. You stand here, not at the end of the road, but at a place many people never reach. A place where you are no longer defined by the past and not yet pressured by the future. You stand in the present with a fuller sense of presence. And right here, your life begins to carry a different quality, not because circumstances have completely changed, but because you have changed how you stand within them. If there is one thing that can be said at the close of this story, it is not a promise of ease. It is an affirmation that you did not walk in vain, an affirmation that what you carried was not meaningless, and an affirmation that you do not need to return to being your old self in order to keep going. You are called to live, not merely to endure, called to be present, not merely to exist, and called to walk in the light of truth refined through your own life. No one else can live this journey for you, but you never have to live it alone. The road ahead continues to open, step by step, at the right pace, and you, with everything you have been through, are stepping into it no longer with trembling hands, but with a heart that has learned how to trust. Not trusting that everything will be easy, but trusting that whatever happens, you will not be lost within it. That is the ending of this story, not because the journey stops, but because from here, you are steady enough to continue it within your real life.
Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.